with the third chapter, okay, about age and acquisition. So you have your classmates presenting today. So the floor now is yours. Okay, Steve Ibrahim. Go ahead.
Professor Tamir, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome again to the third chapter in Principles of Language Learning and Teaching. And it's actually a second presentation for me. It's a promising week. Okay, so this presentation is gonna be delivered by our sister Khadija Gouali, Mariam Mahmoud, and Aziz Deush, and me, Ibrahim Lahmari. Okay, so before we go through this presentation, we would like to ask you a question. Can you think about any relationship between age and acquisition? In other words, do you see, in your point of view, any meaning that if language has, if age has an impact on acquisition? Yes.
I think it's firstly I'm trying to learn French now this age of makeup.
Yeah.
Yes. Also has some impacts. For example, the age impacts the way that they acquire a language, because it's really a huge difference when learning a language in the early stages and compare it to learning a language when you are older. So it becomes more challenging and challenging.
Yes, exactly.
I personally think that there is no relation between age and acquisition. Acquisition is a long life process. Okay, as we go through life, okay, as we get older, we can always, whenever we are in a situation, we can acquire new things. Depending on the context in which we are.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the age.
Yes, Simon.
I think that there is a relationship between age and acquisition, because we cannot compare a child learning a language to an old man learning a language. An old man has already an L1 which is deeply rooted in his own learning process, but the child is still fresh, so there is no comparison.
Okay, so just we need to have your impression about this title, age and acquisition, and actually that's the question that this chapter is trying to answer. Do childhood and adulthood and differences between them hold some case to second language acquisition models and theories? Okay, so that's what we are going to consider. So our presentation discusses the main of the following points. Okay, in the first part we are going to talk about dispelling myths, types of comparison and contrast, then the critical period hypothesis, and in the second part we are going to talk about some considerations, namely neurobiological considerations, the significance of accent, and the affective considerations, linguistic considerations, and in the third part we are going to deal with issues in first language acquisition revisited and some age and acquisition inspired language teaching methods. So concerning my part, I'm going to tackle 3 points. First, dispelling myths, and then types of comparison and contrast, and then the critical period. Yes, that's what we are going to answer in this presentation. Okay, so as a first step in investigating the age and acquisition is to dispel myths, means to refute false arguments. Okay, dispel means to cause something to disappear. Okay, to refute. Okay, or to vanish false arguments about the relationship between first and second language acquisition. Okay, so. Sorry? There are some false arguments about about the first and second language acquisition. So we are going to say in terms of how children or learners learn language. Okay, we are going to say that traditional methods, for example, review language as a matter of imitation, repetition, and so on. We are going to tackle this. So, Hans Heinrich Stern summarized some common arguments that cropped or had been raised to recommend a second language teaching method or procedure on the basis of first language acquisition. Okay, so these arguments are: first, repetition. This argument claims that we learn, or a child learns his first language by repeating things over and over. Okay, that's the idea, and they claim that we should learn the second or foreign language in the same way. Okay, repetition. The second argument is imitation. So this argument considers language as a matter of imitation. Okay, so in order to learn language, you have to be mimic. Okay, you just like a child. Okay, just you act like a child.
The same way the child does, is always imitating whatever the adults are saying. Okay, so they claim that when people are learning a second or foreign language, they have to do like the same imitation.
Yes,
This is an argument.
Yes. The third argument is natural order, which means that we learn first separate sounds, and then words, and then sentences. This is the order that we learn language. The other argument is speech development. Okay, listening, speaking, understanding always precedes speaking. So first we are exposed to input, and then output later on comes later on. Okay. The fifth argument is natural order, but here in terms of the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And reading and writing skills are considered as an advanced stages. Okay, we do not tackle them until later on. Okay, so the other argument is that there shouldn't be any translation, and they claim that if when you were a child you didn't use translation to learn the language. So they claim that if you were able to learn the first language without using any translation, you should be able to learn the foreign or second language in the same way. Okay. The last argument is that it is unnecessary to use grammatical conceptualization in teaching. Means that children do not learn formal grammar, but they speak perfectly the language. That's the argument of yes, implicitly, okay, or in the yeah, sure, yes.
What's the difference between the first natural order and the
Yeah, I explained this. Okay, so the first order, natural order, is in terms of sounds, words, and sentences. But the other natural order is in terms of skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And I see that no one could, for example, children, no one could ask them, for example, to write or read when they learn their first language. It's not of crash language. These are claims of traditional methods that we are going to say.
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of natural order, yeah, sure.
Yeah, with
Yes.
the natural approach.
This is not the natural order of discussion. Natural discussion, it's in terms of complexity of language.
As well of skills, as well.
No.
As we will see later, there is a mention of the natural approach, which is used in.
So here, these are arguments, so it's a discussion, okay? So maybe it's slow, maybe it's not possible, because you know many of the principles now in language teaching in relation to acquisition, there are still debates, okay?
Yeah.
Even if it is Russian, Rahma, even if it is Russian, okay, it's not something noble or for us.
It's remind me of Russian.
It's a debate. It doesn't mean that Russian who says that it's going to be true. We have to keep it, okay?
Yeah.
So it's a debate, and we're going to see that it's a debate, okay? But what I want you to understand from this is that what he wants to say around here is that there are a number of issues, okay, that's on the basis of the observation of child language acquisition, okay, Okay? Now what do they notice? They notice that, for example, the child starts learning sounds and then moves on to words and then moves on to sentences. Then the same thing in terms of development, speech development in terms of skills. So they notice that the child understands, listening, is developed, then speaking, and then goes to reading, and then goes to writing. So this is what you notice for child language acquisition. And then these people, experts in the field of second language acquisition or language acquisition, they say that in order to learn a second or foreign language, they say that we have to follow the same principles that we notice and we observe in child language acquisition.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of debate. That's why here he starts telling you that these are myths. So they are debatable. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. So we proceed. So these arguments that we have just seen represents the view of people, especially behaviorists, who thought that they should apply the same method by which children learn their first language to second language learning as well. Okay, so this is these are the claims of behaviorists and other traditional theories of learning. Okay, in contrast, as cognitive and constructivist research on first language acquisition gathered momentum, second language researchers and foreign language teachers began to recognize the mistakes or the flaws in drawing direct global analogies between first and second language acquisition. Okay, so the traditional methods tried to draw or to see that first language acquisition and second languages are the same. Okay, it's a kind of analogies.
This
okay.
is what it means. This what is the word? What's the title?
Dispelling myths. That's.
It means that, according to cognitive and constructive approaches that are coming only recently, so what happens is that they have gathered, okay, they have developed, and they have noticed that
There are flaws, big mistakes.
Okay, mistakes in drawing direct global analogies, similarity between first and second language.
That's why
And that's the purpose of this chapter. One of the things that is the main argument against these principles is the fact that how can we compare a child learning first language to an adult learning a second or third or whatever language? If you look at these two, the child and the adult, cognitively speaking,
They are not the
they are
same.
much, the adult is much more
has to do
developed,
with the
okay, rather than the child. So how can we draw these analogies? So this is one of the arguments, and this is the purpose of this chapter today, where we have to look at the details concerning how there is a flaw in comparing between first language acquisition and an adult learning a second or a foreign language.
Yeah. So that's the idea of the spelling myths. Okay, is recognizing and showing the flaws and mistakes in this analogy. So one of the prominent cognitive psychologists is David Ozebel, who sends warning signals at that time. Okay, so David Ozebel outlined problems with the audiolingual method. Okay, that opt for that traditional method. So he says that the rote learning practice lacked the meaningfulness necessary for L1 and L2 acquisition. Okay, so as we have also seen with my presentation yesterday, when we talk about the theory of Ozebel in which he distinguishes between meaningful learning and rote learning. So I think that you know the difference. So adults could benefit from deductive presentations of grammar in contrast with the traditional methods. Okay, the native language can facilitate L2 learning. In contrast again with the traditional method that students should learn directly without any translation the second language and without we know that native language can be used for giving instructions also. Okay, the written form could be beneficial. We see it in the traditional methods that they opt for that natural order in terms of skills. Okay, but here Ozebel says that we could also benefit from the written form as well. Students could benefit from more deliberative speech from the teacher rather than the natural speech. Okay, so this is for Ausubel theory that emerged in the 60s. Okay, in 1963 till 1968. Okay, and later on comes Stern and Koch in the 1973, who addressed the inconsistencies of analogies between first and second language acquisition. They also inconsistencies actually.
Just correcting the pronunciation.
Yeah. Inconsistencies. Right. Thank you.
But in what way
Is it Oswald or Oswald?
Ausubel.
No problem. Proper names, you are free.
Never mind.
As far as you don't deviate a lot, okay? So proper names.
Yes, sir.
In what way Oswald criticized this analogy between first language acquisition and second language?
Yeah, you can notice here the rote learning. Okay, so he criticized the traditional methods or actually which use rote learning. For him, he says that learning should be meaningful, should be related to real life situations. Okay.
But for the second criticism.
Yeah, second criticism.
Benefit from deductive representation of grammar. Normally, for first language learners, when they acquire language, they learn it in an inductive way.
Yeah.
Okay, but here it is a kind of.
It's not a.
So that's the purpose of this, okay? Oswald noticed that there are problems with the audiolingual method because the audiolingual method is based a bit on those myths that are presented in the previous slide. Okay? In the sense that we have to imitate what goes on for the child and do it for the adult. Okay? So one of the ways to show you that there are problems with those misconceptions is that we notice here that there are differences, okay, there are problems in adopting this audiolingual method in teaching adults. What are these problems? So the rote learning practice lacks the meaningfulness necessary for L1 and L2. There shouldn't be a lot of focus on just structure, etc. There should be some meaning. Adults could benefit from deductive result. Now, by opposition to child language acquisition, inductive, there should be some kind of deductive, and that's what is done in teaching grammar, for example. You do it inductively, but at the end there is some deduction, yeah. So these are some of the arguments to show that those theories that were based on the arguments presented in the previous two slides, they are lacking some of the background there, okay? Solidity. So this is the purpose. And the same thing again, the native language can facilitate L2, the child. Okay, what is it? Okay, it has no native language. It's starting to learn the first language. That's his or her native language. Okay? So, but these people, they claim that L1 can facilitate L2. The written form could be beneficial. Not just speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So, we can use from the very beginning written form to teach a language. Okay? And so on and so on. Yes, okay.
Yeah, but I think here, was there at that time, okay, when he stressed that everyone can be very beneficial. That is because most of the languages have the Latin source. Okay, so they share the graphies and sometimes the way we pronounce some words. But for example, for L1, that differs completely from L2. Okay, I don't personally see that L1 can have a beneficial effect on L2. On the contrary, it leads to negative transfer
That's one of the arguments. That's one of the arguments. People differ in this, okay? Yes,
we can go back again to the comparative analysis, which states that if we compare the two language systems, the areas where the comparison, I mean, they have similar rules. They are the areas that would facilitate for the learners to pick up the language.
But what are the areas in Arabic, for example, compared to English?
For example, when we talk about French, passports with the English, they nearly apply the same, okay?
That's generally my idea, that the languages that share the same roots, okay?
That's
generally
facilitates
L1 facilitates
exactly.
learning or acquisition. Okay, but for different languages. No, I don't think
Exactly, and the same approach states that
So that's the purpose. Yeah. So that's the purpose here. Here we don't have to take it like universally correct. But what you are saying doesn't deny this. Doesn't deny this 100%. Doesn't deny it. So, but we just have to be flexible about it. So the purpose here is not to say that it's universal. We have to adopt it in every situation. No, we can adopt it. Like for us, for example, we teach English. Okay. Now, but we know that our students know French. We're not going to rely on Arabic or Amazigh to teach them English, but we can rely, and that's what usually what happens, rely on French sometimes to teach them English. Because we know by intuition that these two languages are similar. So that's the idea here, okay? So your argument is totally correct, but it doesn't deny it. There is this fact that native language, as far as it resembles the second language, we can use it for, okay, teaching that language. Okay, go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I think that that's why most teachers accept to use the French to excel. On the competition, for learning they say you can use French but not Arabic. That's the reason. Similar. The two languages are similar.
Yeah, actually, what may seem as a kind of controversy for Abdelaziz is, for example, adults could benefit from deductive presentations of the grammar because children cannot be exposed to that deductive grammar, but adults are aware. Okay, so they can benefit from deductive presentation of grammar.
More of that is that adult people, when they are learning a language, okay, they tend to feel secure to learn the rules of the language at the first stages, okay, instead of trying to push them to study the rules. That's the way they learn, okay. So they always want you to give them the rule, and then they can apply the rule on a particular exercise. Okay? On the contrary to children who tend to feel confused when they are receiving the rule first, okay, and they always lose the track, okay.
So in fact, Zakaria, you are joining us building criticism for the lingual method. In the sense that there should be some teaching of explicit teaching of grammar and so on for security.
Deductive, yeah.
That's what you're saying.
But
Just for adults.
I'm not favoring teaching grammar. But I agree.
That's it. But the point is there. So you're joining that.
Okay, so in the following part, we are going to tackle types of comparison.
And that's what we're going to reach towards the end. Okay, of the training, it doesn't mean that you have to focus on one method all the time. So it depends on the context, and sometimes you use this, sometimes you have to take things relative, but each one has got its points and negative.
We have to be
We have to adapt.
to be elliptical. Elliptical. Yeah. Okay. So this part is okay. We are going to talk mainly about 4 types of comparison and contrast between children themselves and between children and adults. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So this figure actually summarizes these types of comparison. So as you can notice here, this vertical colored area is purposely broadened so as to account for varying definitions of adulthood. Because what is an adulthood? But in general, it is considered to be one who has reached the age of puberty. Okay, that's the idea here. Okay, so the first comparison is first and second language acquisition in children. Which holds this comparison is holding age constant, means that children here share the age. But we have also to note that, to remember that a 2-year-old, for example, and an 11-year-old exhibit vast cognitive, affective, and physical differences.
First thing we have to start with here in order to make it easy to understand the chart and we give you the
Yeah.
So that's good, we're going on the same right path. But let's just talk about the definition of this C1 and L1. What is C1?
So it's second
child.
Child number 1.
And then C2 is another child. And then L1, L.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay.
No, 1 here.
Yes.
1 here, I guess the C
explains the child, and the one here is for L1, I guess.
First language acquisition, Okay, so please feel free if you don't understand something, we can clarify it, okay? So the second type of comparison is second language acquisition in children and adults, and this comparison is holding second language constant, means here it manipulates the age, the difference in age, in contrast with the first one, which manipulates the language variable. Okay, so and this one is the most fruitful in providing analogies for second language instruction. Okay, and much focus on the rest of this chapter will be on this type of comparison, and the third one, which is first language acquisition in children and second language acquisition in adults, which manipulates actually both variables, language and age. And as our professor mentioned, here there is an enormous affective and cognitive, vast cognitive and physical differences between children and adults.
There is one that is dropped from these three.
Yeah, we are going. Okay, so I want to ask you about this one. Okay, actually A1. Okay, adult first language acquisition. What do you think about this comparison? This one. This cell. Okay, I1.
Because if you look
at adult learning first language.
If you look at the three options that Ibrahim is going to talk about later, you have C1, C2,
Yes.
then you have C2,
and they mentioned
A2,
4.
and then you have C1, A2. So there is one option
Which is
Which is omitted.
C1, A1.
Yeah. So what do you
What
think?
does it mean C1, A1? It means child learning first language, child, okay, and then adult learning
First language acquisition.
Why?
But we cannot have an adult learning his first language.
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we might have an adult learning his
Yes,
first language.
Yeah.
After language loss or language attrition, going back to it and relearning it.
But excuse me, Mr. Mohammed. Here we are talking about first time to learn language. It's not learning language and forgetting about it and then trying to learn it. There is actually one. This is actually. This means, or actually, has to do with pathological cases. Pathological cases, and there is one instance mentioned in the book is by Curtis 1977, in which he wrote about a girl named Jeannie. Okay, a 13-year-old girl who had been suffered and socially socially isolated and suffered all her life. And when she was discovered, she was faced with the task of acquiring the first language. Okay, you see the point.
Okay, I'm sure that you have learned about this in your introduction to linguistics course, in which you have a girl that's been isolated. Okay, so this is a girl who has been isolated for a number of years and no interaction, suffer, and so on. And then when she was discovered, she was not speaking the language. Okay, now that was an exceptional case of one adult. Okay, learning the first language. Yes, yeah, of course. But she learned a bit, okay, but not like a normal process.
And actually, that's the evidence for those who opt for traditional methods, repetition and imitation. Since this girl missed that exposure to language, she felt. So that's why they favor.
This is a real case. This is a real case of another learning a first language. When you are talking about language loss, situation, and so on.
It's not.
What do you mean by language loss? It means that somebody got something and then lost it.
Yeah.
There is already the process of first language acquisition.
Yeah. That's another.
So completely different.
Yeah.
But here we are talking about a real case of an adult, Jenny, this girl, 13 years old. And that's why you have the border line there, green border.
Yeah, so
adult is one will be 13, it should be 14, depending on age of puberty. In this case, a real genuine case of an adult learning the first language, never learned anything. That's why the question was asked later. Yes.
Was it isolated in purpose or?
Suffered. This is probably family problems, okay?
Yeah.
Isolated and anyway.
So that's why we can't have C1, A1.
Yeah.
So it was an exception.
It's an exception.
Yeah, there are actually they are rare instances. Okay.
Yes, exceptional cases. But if you go to your life, normal life, we don't have this. Okay? So that's why this option C1, A1, we are going to get rid of it. We're not going to cancel it. And we're going to focus in the chapter, we're going to focus more on the other option C1, C1, because these are more probable to happen in everyday life. Yes.
Okay, so
I think that there is another case that can be taken as an example here. Children, for example, who were born deaf. Okay? Today, it's possible for them. I have a case in my family. Okay? A little girl is 8 years old. She was born deaf. She is now 8 years old. She was born deaf. Okay? But thanks to a medical surgery, they instilled a certain device in her, a certain brain in her head, and now she is able to listen, and she has started learning the language. She has started speaking. But after 8 years.
Okay, yeah. That's another special exception.
okay, so we are going to neglect this type of comparison since it's very rare. Okay.
C1, A1.
Yeah. Okay. So the last part in my part is about the critical period hypothesis. Okay. So the notion of critical hypothesis is very crucial here, since most discussions on this chapter were focused on whether there is a critical period for language learning. Okay, so the critical period is a biologically determined period of life when language can be acquired more easily, and beyond which time language is increasingly difficult to acquire. That is to say that there is a certain age appropriate for learning a language. Okay? So before and after, it's difficult to achieve full competency. Okay? Full competence in terms of learning and acquiring a language. So that's why it is called critical. Okay? And by the way, this notion of critical period hypothesis was connected to first language acquisition in the beginning until recent years, when there is a lot of research and then it's kind of transfer. There is a possibility of application of this critical period hypothesis to second language acquisition as well. Okay, so for second language acquisition, the classical argument is that a critical point for second language acquisition occurs around the age of 12 or 13, and after that time language acquisition cannot be achieved easily, and they use a powerful expression, means after 12 and 13 you are over the hill. Okay, means no way to learn language if you reach this age. Okay.
Yes, and Chomsky confirmed this idea. Said that only few people can learn, especially for adults, only very few. He said they can learn second language.
But there are some people who start learning languages at 20 and
It is debatable. It is debatable.
Yes, that's issue is debatable.
Yes, it's debatable. And we see sometimes that either confirm or refute this.
Yes. Okay.
This is more related to first language. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the child, I'm talking about children. Okay. It says that we have some kind of biological predetermination to learn the first language within the first years of our family. Okay? And after some years, it becomes really critical to learn first language. Okay?
Yeah.
But again, this is debatable.
Yeah.
Okay? But they found data, they're talking about data there, so they have found people like this, and then it happens.
Yeah.
Okay?
So,
like the case of Jenny.
yeah.
Jenny, she never could speak a language appropriately. Okay? Why? This case of Jenny is supposed this idea of critical period hypothesis, in the sense that she learned some bits, but it was never accurate, or never like others who are the same age.
That's actually the evidence for those who says that it is for first language acquisition. So to
For
examine.
second language, once you go through the first language, the second language becomes acquired. Yes, we're talking about
Yeah.
first language acquisition.
Okay, so
We're not talking about learning.
Yeah.
We talk about learning when we come to the theories and
yeah, so to examine more this issue of critical period hypothesis, I'll give the floor to our sister Khadija to talk about some considerations concerning CHP. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brother Brian.